Welcome back to my channel for another Halo review. This time, it's episode 4, Reach, the big episode according to some of the actors. And let me just say, it ain't half bad. But of course, nothing is perfect. But I like to look at the positives here. That's usually what I do whenever I'm watching stuff. And this episode has plenty of positives, some odd lore changes, but we will get there eventually. Before we get into the spoilers for this great episode, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, that would be a big help to me. But with that out of the way, let's get into it. Episode 4, Reach, begins right where we left off with the last episode. The Covenant are attacking, and Chief and Perez have to find a way back to the base in the midst of all the carnage and explosions going on. Perez's family is killed in the attack, and I haven't said much about her in the past couple of reviews, but I'm really enjoying her character. Just the emotional trauma she went through this episode. The actress for her does a really good job, and you really sympathize with her. And you really want her to succeed, but I just think she's a good character. After this, and a couple more fights, they make it back to Riz and Luis. A great fight scene erupts on the street as we get to see a freaking wraith, which is just so cool. A great emotional scene ensues, as Lewis sacrifices himself to take out the Wraith after his boyfriend's death. You really feel for these new characters who are new to the lore, and you haven't seen a lot of them. They haven't had a lot of screen time, but you really do feel for them. It's one of the big improvements from the first season. Just a lot better characters. But I think the best part of this episode is undoubtedly Keys. This episode made me really like this version of the character so much. His speech to the Marines was just so good. It got me pumped for the final battle of the episode. The actor, I don't know his name, but he delivered, and it was just so good. His last episode of the episode where he sacrificed himself was just so touching and made me feel sad. Like, I didn't care for Keys in the first season, but they really brought him back. Just a lot better writing. But I've read online, and I've kind of started agreeing with some people that I don't know if I necessarily think that he's dead. Like, as he was getting ready to sacrifice himself, the jackals who were up to this point just slaughtering the Marines and some of the civilians were cornering him instead of killing him. I thought this was weird at the time. I thought it didn't make sense. But I think they knew that Keys was a high value target. You know, he could have survived somehow. Maybe an elite with a shield got him before he could die to the explosion. um, but like the rule in media is no body shown. You can't really guarantee a death. So if he does die though, that's that's the odd lore change I was talking about earlier. It really messes with the story, how the story will go once they get to the combat evolved story. But we will just have to wait and see. Um, After Keys' last scene, though, I guess a true final battle of the episode takes place between Silver Team, Soren, Halsey, and the Covenant. There's some really great action and some character growth happens in the scene. Vanek dies to the, I guess, maybe Arbiter, and it really just makes you feel sad. And like the camera pans up Walter White style, and you see the birds that he loves flying overhead. That's just really touching. I wish he would have lived. But another great part of the scene though is when the Arbiter was going to kill the chief, but the elite next to him shoots him instead, and then the Arbiter just slices the elite's head off in anger, and it's just a lot of good comedy. But yeah, one of my complaints in the scene though is Maki shows up to stop the Arbiter from killing Chief. I don't, uh, I don't get why she's here. She was dead last season, and the like prophets abandoned her. I guess it's just one of those things where we're gonna have to wait and see how it goes. But yeah, but this episode has great stakes and consequences. Um, Nobody besides the chief is really safe from the Covenant, and it's really refreshing to have high stakes mean something. Another great plus for the episode was no Quan, but I've looked at the teaser for next week's episode, and it looks to be a Quan heavy episode where it's mostly her or just all her. And I don't know how to feel about that. Like, this episode was so good. I wish we could just have more of it. I think it's going to be at least another 2 episodes before we get back to something like this, which is it's a bit sad. But I will still be reviewing next week's episode like the rest, even if it does end up being eh. But yeah, this was a very good episode. They are really improving from season 1, and I'm so happy for it. I really hope we can get a season 3 so we can get the Halo and for like the general audience to be introduced to the Flood. I think there's a lot of potential in the show now. The only thing that really would have made this episode perfect would be if the Spartans were in their armor. But I guess they did explain it in the story pretty well, with Ackerson taking the armor with him once he abandoned Reach, which I guess kind of makes sense. Um, but the show also made me care a little for Chief as someone outside of the armor. He can still be badass and still, like, during Keyes' speech, he brought up John and just nobody knew that he was Master Chief until Keyes told him that. And that just really boosted the morale of the Marines there, and it was so good. Um, so I hope everyone else was able to enjoy this episode as much as me. If you haven't already, please subscribe. I got more Halo content coming out. I'm going to be reviewing the rest of the season. I hope it just continues to be better and better. So, see you next time.